Hey friends, I'm Jason Odell. Thanks for joining me. I know it's been a while since I've put out a video, but I've been doing stuff, going around and traveling and leading workshops. You know how it goes. For those of you who haven't paid attention for the last year or so, I've been using the Olympus, or I should say OM system, OM1 body, and I recently upgraded to the OM1 Mark II earlier this year. So I've been using the system. I've been very happy with it for a lot of different things. And so what I want to talk about today is some options for travel photography, because I think one of the real strengths of a system like this is having a lot of different choices of lenses that are very sharp and still relatively lightweight and small. So I'm going to give some examples, and there's going to be a lot of overlap in these kits with what you might put together for a landscape photography kit as well. So very similar. So let's start with the bread and butter, and then I'll go through some lenses, and then I want to talk a little bit about some potential combinations, because you can mix and match a lot of stuff here. It's pretty cool. So the first thing you should have if you're a travel photographer generally is your walk around lens. And I'm going to show three options for that today, and they vary in price, size, and weight, but they're all extremely good lenses. And I'm sticking with the f4 or constant aperture lenses, f2.8, f4 lenses. Remember, with OM system micro four thirds cameras, your effective depth of field is twice of what the depth of field would be on, say, a full frame camera. No big deal. Um, let's start with your mid-range zoom. And there's three that I want to talk about. The first is the fastest. This is the 12 to 40 f2.8. It is the kit lens. If you buy an OM1 or an OM1 Mark II, you can get it bundled for a kit. I purchased mine online. I actually found it used as a pretty good deal. But it has an extending barrel, so it's not an internal zoom design, as most of these aren't. It has a lens function button, which is kind of cool. And it gives you the full frame equivalent of a 24 to 80 millimeter lens. That's actually really good for most walking around travel photography, whether you're indoors, on a street. You don't need a tremendous range. And there's a similar option to this. I'll put this one down, and that is this one. It's actually one of the first lenses I bought. This is the 12 to 45 f4. And as you can see, it's much smaller than the 2.8 version. It's a little lighter too, significantly lighter. This thing is also sharp, edge to edge, no issues, wide open. And that's how I recommend shooting it, wide open. So you have a little bit slower aperture, but f4 is just fine. And with the stabilizing system in a camera like the OM1, it's really not a big deal. I love this lens because how small it is. Okay, so that's two mid-range zooms, and then the third one that I want to bring into the picture here is actually a full super zoom range, but it fits this bill for a traveling photographer, and that's this one, the 12 to 100 f4. Now, this is probably the most expensive of the bunch. It's the largest and the heaviest, but boy, does it give you range. It's 24 to 200 equivalent. It's a constant f4 through the range. It does extend. It's not an internal zoom. It offers the lens function button, which you can program to whatever you want to do, HDR or something like that, whatever. And it has built-in um, stabilization, IS. And this works in concert with the IBIS in the OM1 and similar cameras to give you something like, 7 or 8 stops of vibration reduction, which is tremendous. It means you can hand hold these things down to, extremely slow shutter speeds. I routinely will go down to, I don't know, a quarter of a second exposure, handheld. It works sometimes as long as you're, relatively good with your technique. So this one is cool because it's not just a mid-range zoom. This would be your one lens solution. And if you're a travel photographer and you only want to carry one lens and you're using OM system gear, this is really an all-purpose, all-around choice. Okay. Now let's overlap into that slightly longer range. We talked about having, a 24 to 80, 24 to 90 equivalent, which is probably a 90% solution for most traveling photographers. But if you want that little bit of extra reach on occasion, what do you do? Now, there's three lenses that I can talk about, but I only own two of them. These are your 40 to 150 range from the OM system. Okay. The first one that I will bring out is the smallest, and it is absolutely inexpensive. This is the 40 to 150 f4 to 5.6R, and you can see it has quite a bit of barrel extension. Despite the fact that it's a little bit slower and a little bit more plastic construction, this lens is actually quite sharp. And if it's something you're only doing some of the time, hey, you pair that with this lens, and you've got yourself a very small 2-lens agile travel kit. Now, if you want a little bit better quality, if you're looking for better edge sharpness, corner sharpness, which I understand, you're going to pay a penalty in weight. So the next one up is the 40 to 150 f4. Okay, this is an OM system lens. It has a locking retractable barrel, but and it does not extend once you've unlocked it, which is kind of nice. So it's an internal zoom once you've extended it. It's a constant f4, so a little faster than that other one. Again, very sharp edge to edge, but it weighs a little bit more. But you could easily pair it with either the 12 to 45, or if you chose to go a little bit heavier and you paired it with the 12 to 40, you would have the advantage that both of these lenses use the same 62 millimeter front filter. So if you're going to use a polarizer or something, there you go. All right, so those are some options. Now, if you really want to have the tiniest possible travel kit, and you're willing to make a little bit of a compromise in edge sharpness, and this is not a huge deal-breaking kind of thing, but it's there if you look for it, you can presumably have an all-in-one lens, and that's this one, the OM System 14 to 150, and it's an f4 to 5.6. Don't let its diminutive size fool you. It is fully weather sealed, meaning you can use it in the rain. It's quite good. Not as sharp as the constant aperture zooms. That's true, but in the center, it's fine. You can shoot it wide open without hesitation, and you could put this on your camera, and there you go. You have a 28 to 300 equivalent. You know, compare that in size with the 12 to 100, which I still love this lens, but my goodness, this is small. Last thing, okay, what about having that little bit of extra wide end? Now, most travel photography, quite honestly, and even landscape photography, you don't usually need the really super wide lens, but they have their moments. So depending on how you shoot, you may want to go big and get a high-end lens, or just keep something small. And there are options for this, and I have a couple of them to share. So the one that I originally purchased, and is a great lens, is the 8 to 25 f4. It's got a focusing ring clutch, it's got a lens function button, and it has a little bit of zoom extension, but not too much. So it retracts and you can lock it down in the compact size. Now, it's not the smallest, it's not the lightest, but boy, is it sharp. And one of the interesting things what I really like about this lens is that the range is the equivalent of 16 to 50 if you're shooting it, in full frame equivalent. This is a very viable walk-around lens for a lot of urban settings. 16 to 50, that's a pretty cool focal length range. So the 8 to 25 is really good. And the other thing I like about it, it takes front filters. It uses 72 millimeter filters. What does that mean? Well, you can match it right up with the 12 to 100. They both use 72 millimeter filters. This would be an everything kit. This could do your landscapes, this could do your cities, your walk around. 2 lenses, not the lightest, but still quite reasonably compact. There is a couple other options. Now, Olympus OM System makes a 7 to 14 millimeter f2.8 Pro lens. Now, I don't own that one for a couple of reasons. It is a little wider, so you get a 14 millimeter equivalent, but you'll notice the range is 14 to 28, whereas this guy here is 16 to 50. I like this range. It's almost it's a hybrid lens almost in terms of its focal length range. And like I mentioned before, this one takes front filters. The 7 to 14 millimeter does not. Now, there's some contraptions you can slap filters on. You can get these massive filter holders. But if you're traveling, especially internationally, you don't want to carry all that junk with you. So having screw-in filters is, in my opinion, much easier to deal with. But those are both very good lenses. And I could understand that if you're more into things like astro, night, landscape photography, having a 2.8 lens might be more your thing. Now, if you want to go really small, and again, if you're willing to compromise a little bit on aperture and a little bit on edge sharpness, boy, you really cannot go wrong with this next lens. And this is the 9 to 18. And look how small this sucker is. Okay, this is a 9 to 18 millimeter f4 to 5.6, so it's variable aperture. Extends out, so it compresses down when you lock it down. It's got a little lock switch on the side here. This compresses down to just absolutely nothing. Now think about this. Travel photography. Put it with your 14 to 150. This gives you a range equivalent full frame from 18 to 300. And look how small that is. So this is another option. If you don't do a lot of wide shooting but need one in a pinch, this is what I would definitely recommend. The 9 to 18 millimeter f4 to 5.6 Mark II, I think, is the one that they have now. But in either way, these are all very good lenses. They differ basically size, weight, and a little and aperture, and a little bit in edge sharpness. But all the constant aperture lenses I told you are all brilliantly sharp. You can shoot them wide open without fear or any kind of hesitation. So, mix and match, figure out what works best for you based on the size, based on filter thread, based on functions, and how much you really plan on using it. And you can put together a really wonderful travel photography kit. So one of the things I'm thinking about is I've got a trip to photo safari travel workshop, so to speak, in Iceland next September of 25. And I'm trying to decide what I'm going to bring. I got a lot of choices, and those are first world problems, but they're good problems to have. So until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Jason Odell, luminescentphoto.com, and I'll see you again soon.